listening to the Mark Bradford Alchemy for Life podcast.
Deeds, not words.
Well, hey there. I hope you had a good week. In the last episode, I talked about talk being cheap. And I even joked that, my talk is cheap because this is free. Haha. What I want to talk about today, I feel particularly motivated regarding. In the past, I've talked about doing the right thing. And I've sort of talked about in one of my books about how doing the right thing is typically not the easy thing, It's typically the difficult thing or the one that requires the most effort. If doing the right thing was easy, everyone would do the right thing all the time, right? I mean, that would make laziness be something that was non-existent. So I have a history of trying to do the right thing. I went through a period in which it was very difficult for me because I did the right thing, and that almost on a daily basis was difficult. And it was the kind of thing that a lot of people didn't really see, and nor was it something you would just sort of blurt out in a conversation. And now, because of social media, we kind of live in a world in which everything you do, you want to tell everyone about. But there's a phrase that means a lot to me. And it's another version of talk is cheap. It's another version of, just basically talking about something and not doing anything about it and so forth. And it's deeds, not words. You may immediately think you know where I'm going, but I'm not. I'm going to use a metaphorical Christmas to explain my point to you. I mentioned in my book and in the podcast regarding balance in the holidays that, according to Pew Research, most Americans celebrate Christmas. So if you don't celebrate Christmas, you can insert a very important giving holiday in place of Christmas. But you get where I'm going with this. People often say it's the thought that counts. And people who don't receive presents say, well, yeah, no, that's not really what counted. But the thought that counts is lost. And it really is the thought that counts, which is going to be confusing. So stay with me here. If you spend a lot of time thinking about what present would be good for someone, what would make someone happy, and you don't just say, oh, I know it, I'll just buy them X, which is readily available, and I'll click on Amazon and I'm done. But instead, you find that they really like a certain thing. Like, for example, I was given a unique kind of vodka by a client that I thought was awesome, and then I couldn't find it anymore. And someone doing the research to try to find that, even a bottle for me, means a lot to me. And someone did that, and they weren't able to get it. But the thought really counted because they really did do all the legwork. I didn't ask them to, but they did. And that was a lot of time and effort spent in trying to make me smile. So in that case, it was the thought that counted. It was a big deal. Building up to Christmas, you tend to think about presents for people. Hopefully, if you're doing it right, and the thought is counting, you're kind of thinking of what would make, your wife, your husband, your kids, and so forth happy. What would really make them smile? What is something that they wouldn't give themselves? What is something that you can selfishly give to them that they selfishly wouldn't give themselves? And that's a big deal. And it doesn't have to be a physical thing. It can be something like a service. It can be something like an agreement to do something you normally wouldn't do. It can be you taking the time off with them. It can be all sorts of things. But it's the thought that really counts, because it's the mindset and the effort that makes them realize you do care, right? I mention this to you because you don't wake up at 8 a.m. on Christmas and go, oh, I wonder what I can do for that person. You start way before Christmas. Now you see where I'm going, don't you? You start way before Christmas, and the more you start before Christmas, the more it's part of your character, the more it's part of who you are. Deeds, not words. So if you just wake up on Christmas and say, hey, I'm happy today, I'm a friendly person, I'm giving, hey, yay, everything makes me happy and nothing bothers me. And then the next day you're an idiot and you're a jerk. And the next day you're a thoughtless, uncaring person. And you wait another 364 days and then you wake up again as if you've had some sort of personality change. And I'm sorry if that's harsh, but I'm trying to give you some contrast so you understand what I'm saying here, right? Then pretty much loses all of the meaning. If you just wake up on Christmas and say, I'm a good person and I believe in Christmas and I believe in giving. And again, for those people who are finding a problem with me saying Christmas, you know what I mean. A day of giving, whatever you call it, whatever it means to you, even if you don't have a particular holiday you follow, you know what I'm talking about. Being a good person, let's say, right? But let's say being a good person is March 27th or something like that, whatever, okay? You see the difference, the stark contrast of just doing it on that day versus it being a part of your character. So I want to make it clear to you the difference between words and talk is cheap and deeds, not words. I'm not advising you to do a thing. I'm not advising you to not do a thing. I'm only telling you to not wake up on Christmas and decide that you want to do a thing because it's Christmas. And lastly, let me expand on the motivation. If you're doing a thing because of FOMO, fear of missing out, it's not the reason to do a thing. If you're doing something because you're afraid, it's not the right reason to do it. The reason to do a thing is because you believe in it. And you believe in something because you've done the research. You believe in something because it wasn't just a knee-jerk emotional reaction. And if you know anything about marketing or social media, you know that the two kinds of things to get you to have the most engagement in life, whether it's a commercial or whether it's a post on Twitter, is fear and anger. Period. It's been proven time and time again in marketing that if you can get someone to be afraid, unless they buy your product, they're going to buy your product. If you can get them to be angry if they don't have your product, they're going to buy your product. The same thing goes for reactions to other things. Fear and anger. So don't wake up on Christmas and be nice to everyone because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. Don't wake up on Christmas and be nice to everyone because you don't want to be left out. You should be nice because it feels like the right thing to do. So just remember, deeds, not words. Hey, it's me. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Gotta tell you that The Sword and the Sunflower has been out, and if you pick up a copy of The Sword and the Sunflower, you'll be ready for the release of Amira, the epic conclusion to the story of the Sword and the Sunflower.